What is up, boys and girls? Londrick here, and now I'm back, and I've got an audio video for you today. So as the title says, Lundrick's top 10 favourite wrestlers of all time. But a while ago I did a list of top 10 professional wrestlers of all time, and I think I did do a top 25 favourite wrestlers list 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, quite a while ago anyway, as a slide video. But today I'm going to narrow it down to the top 10, but this time I'm going to give you a little bit of audio explaining why and stuff like that. So just to be clear before we get started, this is my personal favourite wrestlers of all time. I'm not exactly suggesting these are better than the other. It's just a personal opinion, and they're all in here for personal reasons, which I'll get into. So there's going to be lots and lots and lots of amazing wrestlers out there over the years that have not made the list. And obviously a lot of your favourite wrestlers won't be on the list, so don't be like, oh my god, Lundrick, you suck, you fucking idiot, if your favourite wrestler's not on here. And obviously, yeah, I want none of that. So this is all for, like I say, all personal and completely my own personal reasons why they're on here. So before we get started, let's do a few honourable mentions. Few guys that almost made the cut but didn't make the cut, of course. Chris Jericho, he might have been even 11 to be fair. Undertaker didn't quite make the list, which don't scold me for that one because I'm sure I will get scolded for that one. Kurt Angle was almost. Eddie Guerrero was almost. And a CM Punk. So those are 5 honourable mentions that didn't quite make the list. So let's get started. Coming in at number 10, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Now, I have a rule that's normally applied, which I don't really pick wrestlers that I did not personally grow up with. I mean, it's all well and good watching them back on DVDs and like networks years later, but in my opinion, it's not really the same as watching it live, like as it's happening, like experiencing it firsthand. But I'm going to make one exception for that rule, and that man is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I love Ricky Steamboat. If you just want to watch wrestling as like wrestling as an art form and all that, one of the best guys out there you could possibly watch. I mean, I wish I was older or Steamboat was younger, so I could have experienced Ricky Steamboat firsthand. I mean, closest I really got is watching a little bit of him in WCW, like 92, 93, 94, of course. But of course, Steamboat's big run was years before that. I mean, really in the late 70s and particularly the 80s. I mean, when you think of Ricky Steamboat, you automatically think of a few things. His tag team run, the NWA with Jay Youngblood, which I've seen some of those matches, are awesome. Obviously his first WWF run in 85 to 88, I think it was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I mean, during the national expansion, that's when he became a big star. And obviously with that, you think of the Randy Savage feud and WrestleMania 3, that epic Intercontinental title match and all that sort of shit. Then obviously his second run in the NWA in 1989, that epic rivalry with Ric Flair. I mean, those 3 matches in 1989, I always thought were definitely the best trilogy of best series of matches of all time. And it took 28 years to finally get a rival to that. When this year Kenny Omega and Okada had those 3 classic matches. But those matches are honestly like amazing matches. I mean, then obviously he came back to the WWF the Dragon. That wasn't great. Then his last WCW run, which, yep, great stuff there as well. Particularly US title feud with Rick Rude, teaming with Shane Douglas to face the Hollywood Blondes, feuding with Steve Austin over the United States title. I mean, just love watching Ricky Steamboat's work. I mean, it really is just a work of art. I mean, yeah, like I say, if you want to like appreciate wrestling as an art form, you could watch tons of Ricky Steamboat matches and learn something. Just pretty much everything he did just looked so good. Nothing looked sloppy or shit or bad or weak. He was, for me anyway, probably the greatest seller of all time as well. I mean, Watch Ricky Steamboat selling it. It's fucking incredible. You don't see enough of that today. Enough of that in today's professional wrestling. And then obviously, but I really started getting into Ricky Steamboat later on when I started. Well, obviously getting older and getting to see more stuff like, especially like when WWE started putting out all these DVDs and stuff. Obviously, you can watch online streaming stuff on YouTube and whatnot. So I'd say about 2004 it was when I really became a massive Steamboat fan. I think especially when I watched all the Flair matches, I thought, wow, that's incredible. I mean, I'd seen the Wrestle War one not the Wrestle War, the first one, Chi-Town, in about 2003. This is our old school list. Do you remember that video sharing app or program, Kazaa? Anyone remember that? I mean, this is back in the days where you would it was a video sharing like app that was called Kazaa. This is where you could download music, but you could also download the odd wrestling match, and I played it on Windows Media Player. That's how old school I am. So that's when I first saw that match. I thought that was amazing, and obviously got the Ric Flair DVD in 2004. Got that for my birthday actually that year. Then I saw the other two matches and I thought, wow, this is blow away. So just over time getting to see more stuff for Steamboat. Really just loved his work and really regretted that I didn't really get to appreciate him in his prime. And then he gave me one amazing moment, well, a couple of amazing moments really. 2009 happened. And then Ricky Steamboat came out of retirement for WrestleMania 25 in their handicap match of Roddy Piper and Jimmy Snuka against Chris Jericho. Piper and Snuka did the thing. Then it was Steamboat and Jericho. You got to bear in mind, Steamboat hadn't wrestled since 1994. He was like 56 or 57 or something like that then. So he looks like pretty good shape, especially for an older guy. Then he said his moves. Oh, that looked good. Did his arm drags. Oh, that looked pretty good too. And then he did a couple more. Then it's like, oh my god, he's fucking awesome. So yeah, just awesome seeing Steamboat roll back the earth, do some great stuff for Jericho. Then the next night in Raw, there was a 10-man All-Stars match. Steamboat was in that, and he got to do his stuff there. Then he had one final singles match at Chris Jericho, Backlash 2009. It was fucking amazing. So number 10 is Ricky Steamboat. Number 9 has got to go to Owen Hart. Same. Yeah, big fan of Owen Hart. Obviously, big fan of the whole Hart family. Well, not all the Hart family, but the main ones that wrestled, like Owen, Bret, Davey, Neidhart, and people like that. Owen Hart, I loved Owen Hart. I just loved his work. I mean, tremendous in-ring performer, really good in the microphone, awesome heel. I've got some great memories of Owen Hart growing up. Some which now as an adult I can appreciate so much. I mean, the first time I really saw Owen from his entire last WWF run from 92 till the end of his life in 1999. Obviously, he'd been the Blue Blazer in the WWF back in the 80s, but I wasn't watching wrestling in the late 80s. I was just I was a baby then. And obviously, I'd never really seen his Stampede work until many years later. I mean, how could I? I mean, that was 1986, and that was the year I was born, so I think Owen really started before I was born, so I can't really see stuff like when I'm not alive or a little baby, can I, really? So obviously the first memories I have of Owen Hart, and it is quite hilarious, really, looking back. In his high energy days, teaming with Coco Beware and those stupid fucking pants that they wore, those big baggy pants with the checkers on them, just off then. But then obviously big breakthrough for me for Owen, that feud with Bret Hart. I mean, I've talked about it in other videos, so I don't want to go on it again, but I hated Owen Hart so much when he turned on Bret in 1994. Hated him. Oh, I was so angry at Owen as a young child then when Owen did that. Now looking through the eyes of an adult, I can appreciate what an amazing heel was. And obviously 1994, Owen's defining year, definitely that big heel turn, beating Bret at WrestleMania in a classic match, win the 1994 King of the Ring, then of course the cage match with Bret at SummerSlam. Amazing year, I mean, some would say Owen Hart's better than Bret. I don't really agree with that. I mean, although Owen Hart was amazing, and I would actually say going right, Owen's probably a more natural, gifted athlete than Bret was, and yeah, he was definitely a better promo as well. But I think the difference is Bret fully dedicated himself to wrestling and was a better all-round package, where Owen Hart saw wrestling as a job, a way to make money for his family, because he wanted the family life. He wanted to get out of wrestling in his late 30s and spend the rest of his life at home with his wife and kids, get a normal job, something like that. Obviously, things never happened that way. So then, obviously, I had more fond memories watching Owen and Yokozuna as a tag team, him and matches with Owen and Shawn Michaels in 95, 96. The tag team with Davey Boy Smith, 1996, 1997. And of course, the epic Hart Foundation revival where Bret and Owen finally made up in 1997. Obviously, I loved Owens in 1997 as well. He was a tag team champion with Davey, Intercontinental champion twice. Obviously, big Canadian Stampede win where he pinned Austin. Then obviously after the whole Montreal screw job and all that, all the other Hart family members left for WCW. Owen Hart remained. Obviously, the whole Owens 98 was it was alright. I wouldn't say it was great. I mean, I did like his little feud and matches with Triple H. Obviously, wasn't too fond of him joining the Nation, but I did like his matches with Ken Shamrock, especially the Lions Den match at SummerSlam. Yeah, obviously promos as well, big fan of that. So I was still watching Owen Hart, and then obviously 1999 happened, and that's a whole nother story. That one really upset me really badly when Owen died, especially the way he did, probably. For me, the saddest wrestling death of all time. I really don't talk too much about it, but yeah, that affected me quite a bit. I was very upset about it. I've probably never truly gotten over that, to be honest. It probably still upsets me to this day what happened to Owen. And God, I miss Owen tremendously. I mean, and there's a guy I love hearing stories about as well. I mean, I could talk about Owen Hart stories all day. I mean, sure, you can find them all. There's some great Owen Hart rib stories out there. And it's awesome. I mean, I love hearing stories about him, and then obviously later on you hear about the guys, what a great guy he was, and just how respected he was amongst his peers and all that. And it's a shame what happened with Owen, and how his widow hasn't made up with WWE, so the Hall of Fame induction's probably never going to happen. You know, I was so happy when we got the Owen Hart of Gold DVD. Was it last year, maybe? Might have been 2015, I'm not sure. I think it actually was 2015, to be fair. So I've got that documentary now in my collection. So I can sit back all these 18 years later, watch Owen Hart classic matches, listen to Owen rib stories and have a little laugh about it. So really loved Owen Hart. Owen Hart has got to be number 9. And at number 8, the rated R superstar Edge. Now, a lot of these, pretty much nearly all these wrestlers on this list, I didn't watch their entire runs from start to finish. One guy I did though was Edge. So my love for Edge really started. This is kind of when I always pat myself on the back for. I mean, sure, over the years as wrestling fans, you've seen young wrestlers and predicted this guy was going to be a star, that guy was going to be a star. Sometimes you're dead right and said wrestler does go on to achieve major things, or sometimes you're dead wrong and people have a mediocre career after that. I mean, Lord knows I've had a couple of those blunders. I'll share 2 with you that I got completely wrong. I mean, back in 1998, I thought Kurgan was going to be a major star. Maybe I just thought, well, he's big and Vince wrestlers, WF likes big men, they always make it. And obviously that never happened. Another one's got to be Test in 1999. I would have been adamant that Test was going to be a major star of the future. I mean, he was in his early 20s at the time. He was 6'6", jacked, had a great look, had so much raw potential. Obviously, for various reasons, he never really rose past a certain level. But one guy, and I was probably watching, I think I was one of his very early matches, like summer of 1998 or something like that. There was a young man with a tall, long blonde hair, had a cool entrance, looked awesome, had some nice ring skills, called Edge, and I thought to myself, yeah, I like this guy. This guy's going to be a star, and so happy that I was proven right in that front. So I pretty much watched and liked Edge from start to finish. Obviously, looking back, I think the Brood is so underrated, such an underrated group. Obviously, Edge, Gangrel, and Christian in 98, 1999 during the Attitude Era. I mean, I fucking love the Brood. Actually, I think obviously they had the cool like gothic vampire gimmick. The entrance was, I loved that fucking entrance where there was a ring of fire and they came up through the stage, and that music, probably one of my favourite Attitude Era themes ever, the Brood / Gangrel singles theme. Fantastic. And then of course, in that, Edge and Christian broke away from Gangrel, formed a tag team, Edge and Christian, which I just loved even more. Obviously, the feud with the Hardy Boys, 1999, No Mercy ladder match, the Dudleys, 2000. Edge and Christian going heel, doing the benefit of flash photography, 5-second post stuff. Awesome stuff. When they stopped going for the crowd, developed them to fantastically obnoxious, cocky heels. I loved Edge and Christian. I mean, I loved Christian as well, and Christian definitely cracks top 25, but loved Edge that much more. Than 2001. Edge wins the King of the Ring, starting a singles career, and this is interesting. Into 2002, this is an interesting time for me because obviously I had my childhood years, which that was Bret, and then obviously early teens, which really became Austin / The Rock, that's Mick Foley. Then obviously 2002, I turned 16 that year, so now I'm into my later teen years, so a different stage of my life. And of course, this was a time where Rock was pretty much going to Hollywood. I mean, he was in and out of Hollywood, but it was pretty obvious that the Rock's days were numbered. Austin had the infamous walkout, of course, and neck injuries and that, and his career was at the end. So now I was looking to find a new guy to get behind as my favourite wrestler, and that really became Edge. I mean, as much as I loved his Rated R Superstar run, which I'll get into in a sec, probably my favourite ever time of Edge's career was 2002. Edge as a babyface on SmackDown. Obviously, started with his awesome feud with Kurt Angle, and looking back, that's a feud I loved so much as a young'un growing up. I mean, awesome matches, great pros. Edge was really becoming into his own. Then the SmackDown 6 era with Edge and Rey Mysterio against Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit against Los Guerreros. Amazing stuff. I mean, it looked like Edge was really on the verge of breaking out. And then, of course, 2003, all those TLC matches, ladder wars, all these big bumps finally caught up to him. He got the neck injury, was out for an entire year. Came back in 2004 on the Raw brand, but I'll have to say that Edge's face run on Raw in 2004 was kind of to be honest with you. And of course, later that year, an epic heel turn. And this is where Edge really started breaking out in the star, man. He was always great in the ring, or at least very good in the ring. Even his mic work was solid, but I don't think it was outstanding. But I don't think it was till he became the aggressive Rated R Superstar that Edge finally developed those world-class promos, which is what really made him into a star. And obviously, whole Matt Hardy situation, I mean, that's a bad one, but out of that, Edge was able to make himself the most despised man in the industry. So he really took that and became probably the hottest heel in the entire business. For a while, of course, he won the Money in the Bank. One of my favourite mark-out moments of him, of course, New Year's Revolution 2006, Edge cashes in the Money in the Bank to become the new WWE Champion. And I think 2006, I just liked him even more. I mean, hardcore match with Mick Foley at WrestleMania. Awesome. I love the Edge Cena rivalry in 2006. I think there's a part, obviously I think because the CM Punk matches were better, I would probably say Cena versus Punk is Cena's best rivalry, but I would say for character and promo work, I'll pretty much put Edge and Cena right up there. I mean, if Edge and Cena had had the sort of matches Edge and Punk... No, fucking hell. If Cena and Edge were having the sort of matches Cena and Punk had, this would have been Cena's best rivalry, I mean. So I think that was definitely the best rivalry of that time period. And then obviously another epic feud, we went to SmackDown, cashing the Money in the Bank for the second time against The Undertaker. Then obviously 2008, Edge and The Undertaker, another one of my favourite all-time feuds. Classic feud, amazing feud, two great characters, great match and all that. That's probably Edge's best feud ever. You know, obviously, so stoked that Edge actually got to main event WrestleMania at least one time in his career, WrestleMania 24 against The Undertaker. I mean, so many great wrestlers, for whatever reason, don't end up main eventing WrestleMania. Looking at you, CM Punk. So glad that Edge actually did that. And I suppose 2009 was probably his last really good year of his career. Obviously, loved the little shenanigans he pulled at New Year's Revolution, where he went, not New Year's Revolution, No Way Out, where he walked into the night as a WWE champion, got eliminated in the first 5-minute period of the WWE title elimination chamber, but then later that night attacked Kofi Kingston before the World Heavyweight title Raw elimination chamber, snuck into that match and then walked out as the World Heavyweight champion. So love that. I thought that was just a brilliant creative move, how Edge started the night as a WWE champion and left it as the World Heavyweight champion. Then of course, obviously, I think I've forgot about the Vicky Guerrero stuff. That was just one of those things that on paper was absolutely ridiculous, Edge and Vicky Guerrero, but it somehow worked. Then of course, last big feud of 2009 was Jeff Hardy, which I really enjoyed that feud. Then 2010, I didn't really like Edge's babyface run in 2010 very much at all. I mean, he's definitely not that. After being such a great heel for so long, didn't really work as a face. And I feel like the feud with Jericho could have been a hell of a lot better than it was. And I feel like 2010 was the year things really started to catch up with Edge. I mean, he wasn't the dynamic performer he had been in the past. Then obviously, less said about that horrible Kane feud in SmackDown 2010, the better. And then ironically enough, 2011 happened, and it seemed like Edge was on the verge of a career revival. I mean, if you remember, he had that really good match with Dolph Ziggler at the Royal Rumble. Him and Rey Mysterio put on fantastic performance in that Elimination Chamber. Went to WrestleMania 27, the World Heavyweight Champion against Alberto Del Rio. And also it looked like there was a big potential rivalry with Christian on the horizon. But then, of course, WrestleMania 27 ended up being his last match. The injuries finally took the toll. He could no longer do it anymore. And that was it. That was the end of a great career. So, yeah, that's Edge at number 8. Number 7. That Texas rattlesnake himself, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, this might be a bit low for a lot of people's tastes, but hey, this is my list and my video, so that's whatever. I'll take whatever criticism I get for that. Obviously, so me, being a wrestling fan since 1992, I missed pretty much nearly all Hogan's Hulkamania run. So for me, the most over wrestler I've ever seen is definitely Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, obviously I missed a lot of his WCW run. Saw him a little bit of Stunning Steve Austin in the early to mid 90s, really, 92, 93, 94. But I wasn't really a big fan of Stunning Steve Austin. I mean, I thought he was good and all that, but I wasn't really massively into him back then. Then obviously also I missed his brief run in ECW, which I think if I saw that now, I would have thought it was awesome. I do think it was awesome looking back, but if I'd saw it at the time, I think I would have loved that. Then of course, late 1995, he signed to the WWF, debuts, and I think his actual air debut was January the 1st, 1996, but I think that was taped 2 weeks earlier. So then he came in as the ringmaster with Ted DiBiase, and even then I was like, I knew he was good, but I thought why would I give a shit about the ringmaster if the WWF didn't really do much of him? Then of course each epic rise, wins the King of the Ring. Gets after he got rid of DiBiase, developed Stone Cold Steve Austin, and wow, you could really see like this was something completely different that we hadn't seen before in the WWF. I mean, oh, some of the epic stuff he did back then, especially when he attacked Brian Pillman, brought his the Pillman's got a gun, revolutionary stuff from the time, and then obviously really took notice of Stone Cold when he started feuding with Bret Hart, notably Survivor Series 1996. I mean, that's when I recognised how good Stone Cold was, but obviously I was a Bret Hart supporter then, and that's kind of the relationship I had with Stone Cold going to 1997. I like Stone Cold Steve. I was a big fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I would always cheer him on when he's wrestling anybody else, whether that's Vader, The Undertaker, anyone else. But when he was wrestling Bret Hart, I was behind Bret Hart all the way, and just the character work he was doing throughout 1997. Of course, the iconic WrestleMania 13 match of Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin, amazing stuff. Obviously, 1997, he just gets better and better and hotter throughout 1997. Even after he got the neck injury and all he was doing was cutting promos and stunning people every week. I mean, I think that was actually brilliant by the WWF. I mean, even though Stone Cold was injured, they kept him on television, but in a way, not being in the ring, forced the ref to come up, create scenarios to keep him on television, like when he would stun people and attack people and cut promos and that. At that time, from after SummerSlam 1997, while he was injured, he actually got more popular than when he was wrestling. I mean, obviously this culminated in a big moment of Austin, Stunner and Vince McMahon for the first time in Madison Square Garden. Then obviously after the Montreal Screwed, after Bret left really, this was now Austin's WWF, and obviously Shawn Michaels was breaking down at the end. So 1996, of course, if you're a wrestling fan in 1998 and you weren't a Stone Cold fan, had to be something wrong with you really. Unless you're like one of these old people who are like, oh, I don't like how he swears and he's not a good guy and all that sort of thing. But yeah, obviously 1998, cannot say enough about that. Obviously the stuff with Tyson, unbelievable. Build up to WrestleMania 14, unbelievable. Winning the championship at WrestleMania 14, and of course Austin McMahon, my favourite ever rivalry of all time. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, I'll do a top 10 favourite rivalries of all time. Maybe. Not promising it, just saying maybe. Obviously, Austin McMahon, I don't need to go into great detail about that. I mean, it's well documented. I'm sure if you weren't there at the time, you've seen most of the stuff back on the network and DVDs and all that. It's talked about, and everything was hyped up to be and more. Just amazing feel the corporate owner, billionaire Vince against the working class guy Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin was doing what every man in the world wanted to do, telling his boss to fuck off, punching his boss. Brilliant. Just most of the world were living vicariously through Austin at that time. And of course, big matches of The Undertaker, 1999, just as hot as ever, feuding with The Rock, WrestleMania 15, stuff going to Backlash in 1999, like, oh, I just loved when the Rock threw Austin off the bridge, had the fake funeral for Austin. Austin drives in a monster truck, destroys The Rock's brand new Lincoln, awesome stuff. Obviously then later on 1999, keeps on feuding with The Undertaker, Fully Loaded 1999. Loved the build-up of that match, First Blood, end of an era, and of course, Austin goes down for the big neck injury, 1999. Late 1999, he's gone for most of 2000, comes back, I mean, and I was so hyped for Austin coming back to find out the bastard who ran him over. But before that, I loved his little brief comeback when he helped The Rock win the WWF Championship at Backlash 2000. And then, of course, the heel turn, which, I wasn't really a fan of that, but then obviously 2000. So obviously after that, I liked Austin less after the heel turn and all that, but still, obviously by that time, The Rock was my guy, which we'll get into later on. Don't worry about that, guys. We will. Then of course, obviously retires in 2003. But it's always nice to see Stone Cold's retires. also Stone Cold's return. I mean, I loved his run as Eric Bischoff's co-Raw GM in 2003. That, I think that was a brilliant way to keep him relevant. Austin and Bischoff, they just had chemistry, didn't they? They just worked really, really well. Really, really nice stuff. Yeah. And of course, I like his little comeback. Like, for instance, when he came back to do Piper's Pit at WrestleMania 21, thought that was really cool. And these little things like the beer drinking contest he had with JBL at the Saturday Night Main Event in 2006. Then, of course, seeing him going to the Hall of Fame in 2009, cool as shit. Obviously, I'm still like listening to Austin's podcast that he did. Although I haven't listened to that many Austin podcasts lately, but I'll say when he really started doing them in 2013, 2014, just awesome just to listen to the man talk about the business and all that. And yeah, so Stone Cold at number 7. Number 6 is Mick Foley. I mean, it's sad now that his last run as Raw General Manager kind of sucked. And the sad thing is, there's going to be some young kids watching that and seeing that side of Mick Foley being weak and getting berated by Steph McMahon on a weekly basis, and being seen as an incompetent GM, that they don't realise what a legend this man is. This man is a legend of... I mean, I love Mick Foley. I mean, I think one of the big reasons I loved Mick Foley growing up was, like, obviously when you're a kid, you see yourself through these wrestlers' eyes, right? I mean, I'm sure kids do that, all that, I mean. So for me, like, Mick Foley represented a lot of what I felt I was. I mean, Mick Foley, not the most athletic guy, and not really an athlete at all, just like me. Mick Foley, not the best and most popular guy, like me. Obviously, Mick Foley grew up loving the wrestling and just wanted to be a wrestler. Mick Foley grew up loving the wrestling business. I grew up loving the wrestling business. So I kind of saw myself as Mick Foley. I mean, obviously, I saw a bit of him as Cactus Jack in WCW. Thought he's good then, but it wasn't until he came to WWF that I really became a fan of this guy. I mean, what I loved about him, he was just so different, especially at that time. I mean, obviously the WWF traditionally, it's about big, muscular, good-looking guys. Here comes Mick Foley, big bearded guy. Doesn't have a great physique. Isn't particularly athletic. I mean, it's amazing in a profession where having a good physique and being athletic seen as a big thing. Mick Foley made his own style. I mean, that's what I always appreciate about Mick Foley. He went out of his way to be so different. I mean, that style that he brought to the US, I mean, totally different from what anyone else was doing at the time. And I was just blown away that when Mick Foley attacked The Undertaker on Raw when he came back, I just thought, wow, when Mankind destroyed The Undertaker. I mean, obviously I've seen Undertaker in vulnerable situations before, but not like this. I mean, for the first time, like I thought Undertaker had maybe finally found his match in Mankind. What's interesting, so around 1996 is when I pretty much figured out that wrestling wasn't real. I mean, honestly, I didn't really truly know how it worked, but I knew it wasn't altogether real type thing. And obviously before that, I liked all the faces, hated all the heels, just like a good little boy should do. Good little boy wrestling fan should do. But that Mankind's really stood out to me as the first heel that I really enjoyed. And obviously the Mankind, I was blown away by the Undertaker Mankind stuff in 1986. I mean, perhaps it might not look as great looking back now, perhaps. I don't know, maybe you younger fans could be a judge of that who didn't see it live, but you watched it back years later. Maybe it wasn't as impressive as I thought it was, but at the time I just loved the chemistry between the two. Loved how... You've got to give props to Undertaker too for making Mick Foley look like a star in all of this. And what was great about it, of course, you had so for the last few years Undertaker was having all these matches of all these big guys like King Kong Bundy, Mabel, the Giant Gonzalez, Kamala, that type of era. So his matches were really sucking. But he got this thing of Mankind where he really got a chance to show what he could do as an in-ring performer. I mean, obviously Taker, he had the great match with Bret at the Royal Rumble, but I think the series of Mankind really let the world show what the Undertaker could do in the ring, and they had some magical chemistry. I mean, his Mankind's character as well, the crazy fucking maniac, and that squeal he used to do. And no, I'm not going to do it, but I'm sure you know what I'm on about. Freaked me out as a kid. I mean, and I always thought when he used to pull his hair out and shit like that was awesome. And then in 1997, I'll tell you what really, really, really made me a fan of Mick Foley. When he did the series of sit-down interviews with GR, which aired over about 4 weeks on Raw, where you got to hear Foley's real story. I mean, he was in character, but he was really telling his real life story about how he felt left out as a kid and all that, not truly accepted, got picked on a little bit, and I thought, wow, this guy is a real person, like, if you know what I mean. And then obviously talked about his stuff, how he grew up hitchhiking to Madison Square Garden to see Jimmy Snooker in 1983, maybe. Could be wrong in the year, but it's obviously the one where Snooker dove off the cage in the garden against Morocco. Sure, you know which match I'm talking about. Obviously, Foley hitchhiked to Madison Square Garden that night, and obviously it was like, yeah, maybe he's not this crazy Mankind. Maybe he's actually quite a normal person, just a regular guy who loved being a wrestling fan, had the same sort of problems most kids have growing up there, like socially and all that. And then obviously you learn about his thing of creating the character Dude Love, and when he was 18 made that movie. Obviously and that was just. And then obviously, of course, 1997, Dude Love actually became a character. Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't mind Dude Love as much as, I mean, a lot of people hate it, but it was deliberately corny, if you know what I mean. And I think it's another great example of Mick Foley being versatile. I mean, he could have done the same character as Mankind or Cactus Jack, but he played a completely different character as Dude Love. And I kind of appreciated that. And I loved the period, 97, 98, where he could alternate between, obviously, because Cactus Jack came back in 1997 as well, which is another amazing moment. If you remember that awesome edited video they made of all the three characters, but I just loved how 1 week he might be Cactus Jack, next week he might come out and be Dude Love, and then maybe the next week he'll come out as Mankind, and then obviously that culminated in an amazing moment at the Royal Rumble 1998 where Cactus Jack, Mankind and Dude Love all competed in the Royal Rumble that night. I mean, now let's just ignore the fact that he got eliminated from the match 3 times, but it was still cool anyway. Then of course, obviously Dude Love Austin feud after WrestleMania 14 was tremendous. That Over the Edge match, a great match. And of course, you can't talk about Mick Foley without talking about Hell in a Cell, The Undertaker, King of the Ring 1998. I mean, could not believe that when I saw it live, and it's just, obviously after that you have a completely new appreciation for Mick Foley, because you think this guy is risking his life for our entertainment. I mean, how can you not applaud like Mick Foley for the risks he was taking? And obviously when Mankind became more of a comedic character in late 98, 99, I mean, because obviously I have a kind of a similar weird sense of humour like Mick Foley, like Edge and Christian, so I think deep down most wrestling fans are inner dorks, aren't they? Let's be honest. I'm a bit of a nerd, I'm sure most of you are a bit of a nerd, so nerdy jokes are cool. Obviously one of my favourite feuds with Mick Foley and The Rock, 98, 1999, and that was awesome as well, how you had this big ugly guy as a heel, but the handsome movie star looking type guy Mick Foley obviously the face, The Rock as heel. On paper, that's pretty backwards, because you're thinking the big ugly brute would be the heel and the handsome movie star looking guy like The Rock would be the face, but it was the other way around. Obviously, could not believe. I thought the Royal Rumble 1999 match was insane, could not believe that. And then obviously 1999, obviously Mick Foley's style, of course, I mean, as awesome as it was and how much you appreciated, did not, obviously a long career was never on the cards for him. And then by the time he was turning 34 in 1999, the style he'd been doing for like over 10 years was really taking its toll. 1999 he really slowed down. Obviously, and then of course, he relied a lot on Mr. Soccer, but it's weird, like, kind of think Mick Foley at that time was both having the worst matches of his career, but he was more over than he'd ever been before, and he was making more money than he'd ever imagined he would. I mean, obviously this was 1999 when everything with the business was on fucking fire. Mr. Socko was Mankind was over as shit, but his body was breaking down, unfortunately. And then of course, obviously he had to and obviously for me anyway, one of my favourite angles of all time was the whole thing of Triple H, Cactus Jack, and early 2000s. So the McMahon Helmsley era had fired Mick Foley in right at the end of 1999, fired Mankind when he lost the match to The Rock, was berating him for weeks, really just taking the piss out of him, doing these insulting vignettes with a fake Mankind, which, I don't know how many people know this, but I'm going to tell you now, that fake Mankind was in fact Midian, Dennis Knight. I mean, don't know how many of you knew that, but that's what it was. And then obviously there was a Raw where Mick Foley got reinstated, but then Triple H really beat the shit out of him, bloodied him up and all that, and then that forced Mick Foley, I mean, he realised Mankind was not ready to face Triple H for the title at the Royal Rumble, because the match had already been set by this point. So for Mick Foley to get an edge on Triple H, he had to go to drastic measures. This old happy-go-lucky Mankind wasn't going to cut it anymore. Getting the sock out of his pants to get a pop wasn't going to work against Triple H. So Mankind had to morph back into Cactus Jack. That moment on SmackDown where Mankind morphed into Cactus Jack, that has got to be one of my favourite wrestling moments ever. Probably top 10. Maybe I'll make a list on that one day as well. Maybe. Then obviously, the fucking build-up, that Royal Rumble 2000 street fight, and the street fight itself, I fucking love that match. I really, really do. Then of course, obviously, that led to the retirement. Sorry, I just had a little cough there. Retirement. No Way Out 2000. Awesome Hell in a Cell match. Mick Foley retires for 6 weeks. He retired for 6 weeks anyway. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of him coming back for WrestleMania. Then of course, after that, this is obviously another one where I loved him even more. Is when I read his book. His first book, Have a Nice Day. I probably didn't get it till about 2000, maybe 2001, I can't remember. But obviously, you remember this as a time where, like I say, I knew what wrestling was, but I didn't really understand how it worked and what it was and all that. And reading that book, I mean, reading his real story and all that, and what an engaging book it was. One, made me appreciate him on another level, and then two, actually taught me a lot about the wrestling business as well. So, like how it might seem fake and all that, but the sacrifices that they go through, the stuff that they had to put up with not seeing the families and stuff, and dealing with all the injuries, working 250 dates a year plus, really just made me appreciate him on a whole other level. And after he retired, he was still in. Maybe as a character standpoint, Commissioner Foley may have been my favourite, because he just came to work every week and was just himself, and he was just there to have fun. That's what his role was, to have some fun. I mean, and it worked so well. Loved Commissioner Foley, and of course, he was gone for a while, and he came back to the ring 2004. I mean, that feud of Randy Orton, fucking epic. An amazing rivalry it really was. The whole thing of Mick Foley getting goaded into face of Randy Orton on Raw and then backing down. I mean, Randy Orton spitting in Mick Foley's face. For weeks, Orton was calling him a coward. All of Mick Foley's co-workers were calling him a coward. Then, of course, Mick Foley returned at the Royal Rumble 2004 to attack Randy Orton and set up that big rivalry. Obviously, the WrestleMania 20 match was what it was. And then, obviously, remember the promo where he had the bar. He was sat in a dark room on a rocking chair with Barbie, the barbed wire baseball bat. Promos unbelievable. I mean, and going back to promos, I wish it was around the time I'd finally seen all the ECW anti-hardcore stuff. Mick Foley, Kane, Dewey promo. If you haven't seen that, Cactus Jack, Kane, Dewey promo in 1995. Get it watched. Amazing stuff. Then obviously Backlash 2004 has a tremendous match with Randy Orton. Then after that he had other comebacks like. But yeah, he actually had a pretty good 2006 to be fair, and that was really Foley's last pretty good year, to be honest. I mean, obviously WrestleMania 22 with Edge, ECW One Night Stand 2006, him and Edge against Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer. Whoa, brutal match in the course. Surprisingly stole the show, SummerSlam 2006 with Ric Flair. Then you had a handful of more matches than WWE after that. Became a commentator in 2008, which was alright. The teenage run was, it was okay, I think. I don't think it was bad, or I don't think it was great. I think it was just okay. He was even teenage champion for a while, main event in lockdown against Sting, which wasn't a bad match, but it was just alright. And of course, his subsequent comeback to WWE since 2012 had been a varying success, and obviously the less said about that Raw general manager run, the better. So yeah, I just really wanted to talk about why I loved Mick Foley and why Mick Foley was number 6. Getting into the top 5 now, and obviously coming in at number 5 is Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog. I mean, I'm sure you can obviously tell I'm British, so, and obviously I grew up that era, so why wouldn't Davey Boy Smith be one of my guys? So when I first started watching wrestling, I'm going to get into this more in a little bit, I had 3 big favourite wrestlers, and that was Bret Hart, Macho Man Randy Savage, and the British Bulldog. I mean, it was fucking awesome. So, late 92 came around, Davey Boy Smith was a major star in the UK. A national hero, for sure, I would definitely say that. He definitely had that kind of status, national hero status. Looked great, looked the part, and of course, but obviously the big memory, which I've talked about before, SummerSlam 1992, Wembley Stadium, first ever pay-per-view I watched, Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog. The Bulldog wins the Intercontinental title on that show, and it's fair to say, obviously I missed like Davey's earlier runs as a British Bulldogs in the 80s. I think if I was watching wrestling in the 80s, I probably would have loved the British Bulldogs just as much, and of course, obviously, Stampede run the early 80s. I think it came into Stampede in like 81 or something like that. I wasn't born then, so didn't see that at all really. And obviously, like I say, I missed the British Bulldogs run, but to be fair, British Bulldogs in the 80s was probably one of the best tag teams the WWF had at the time. Awesome tag team champions, win the titles at WrestleMania 2. Then of course came back in, I think it was late 90, he came back as a singles guy after Dynamite Kid couldn't wrestle anymore, and throughout 1991 had a great run. And obviously when I started watching him in 1992, which I've talked about, then obviously that Wembley Stadium match with Bret made me a fan of both men instantly. I mean, sold after that. And sad the Bulldog, obviously for reasons due to like growth hormones, steroids, had to leave in 1992. Went to WCW. I saw Baby's WCW run there, which I've always enjoyable overall. I mean, his 1998 WCW run sucked, but his 1993 run was pretty good. I mean, obviously, he main event of Slamboree against Vader, him and Sting against Vader and Sid at Beach Blast, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Beach Blast. Then obviously after that he was gone again. Reappeared in the WWF in 1994, so I had a chance to see him again and like him even more. I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of Davey Boy, him and Bret feuding with Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart, that was cool. Obviously the 1995 Royal Rumble, I mean, that Royal Rumble match wasn't that good, but I loved the little thing of Shawn Michaels and Davey being the first two. Little story actually, so the little story is me as a kid actually, so watching this Royal Rumble 1995 match, I mean, I really wanted Davey Boy to win that match, and obviously it comes down to Davey and Shawn. So I'm watching this because I think this was the first ever live WWF pay-per-view in the UK. In fact, I'm 99% sure it was, because obviously before that they were all on tape delay, but this one was at live, and I think back then at midnight in the UK, so obviously I was a kid and I had to go to school, and understandably parents weren't too eager for me to stay up to 3 o'clock in the morning and then get up at 7 o'clock or something to go to school or whatever it was. So so obviously in those days I used to get up because I think school started about 9, I think it was, maybe. So for these I would always make sure I got up about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to go downstairs and watch the WWF pay-per-view before I went to school. So I was watching Royal Rumble 1995, because obviously back then there was no Twitter on my phone or notifications to tell me who won these matches. So although I wasn't watching these matches live, I was watching them spoiler free. So watching the 1995 Rumble match was really behind Davey Boy Smith. So you remember the end of the match, they teased it where Davey Boy clotheslined Shawn Michaels over the top rope. And obviously they did the Shawn Michaels 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. But they didn't acknowledge that at the time. They actually played Davey Boy Smith's music, thinking that he'd won the Royal Rumble. So obviously the camera didn't show that only one of Shawn Michaels' feet hit the floor. Looked for all intents and purposes like Davey Boy had won the Royal Rumble and was going to WrestleMania to face a champion. So I was like, yeah! Jumping up, putting my little arms in the air. And then obviously Shawn Michaels sneaks back in the ring, knocks the Bulldog over the top rope, and then they say Shawn Michaels won the Royal. So I'm like, what? Obviously I didn't. So obviously I was really pissed off that. Then obviously they showed the whole thing. Shawn Michaels 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. So the little bastards got me hoped. I was so excited that Davey Boy Smith had won the Royal Rumble, but he hadn't, of course. Shawn Michaels 1 foot, and then I was so disappointed to find out that Shawn Michaels only had 1 foot, and Shawn Michaels in fact won the 1995 Royal Rumble. So that was just a little childhood story I thought I'd share with you there. Then of course, I even kind of like the Allied Powers. I mean, I wasn't really a Lex Luger fan, but I think teaming Luger with Davey kind of made me like Lex a little bit more. I thought it was a decent little tag team at the time. And of course, Davey Boy turns heel in 1995, cuts his hair short, so now Dave's a heel. I can't be a fan of him anymore because I was a good lad who liked the faces and hated the heels. So went through a period of not being able to like Davey Boy Smith. And of course, like I said, as I got a little bit older, like 1996, I realised wrestling wasn't really that real. So even though he was a heel in Camp Cornette, I kind of started liking him again in the feud of Shawn Michaels. And of course, him and Owen won the tag team titles, which I thought was cool. Then of course, awesome run with Hart Foundation. Obviously the Hart Foundation and Bret all reunited in 1997. Obviously the whole concept of them being heels in Canada, heels in the US, but faces everywhere else, which was awesome. So I could be a big fan of Davey Boy again. And thought that run was pretty good. And of course, One Night Only in that whole debacle, that really upset. In fact, 20 years later, I'm still quite upset about how that whole thing went down. I don't need to go into a great deal about that now, but yeah. Then of course, then after that, then obviously the end of his run, when he left after Montreal to go to WCW with Bret, that's after that it's kind of sad to watch, to be honest. I mean, those memories, those are sad memories. Let's be honest, Davey's WCW run in '98 was pretty miserable, wasn't it? He wasn't the same performer, and they weren't really using him well at all. And of course, he got the massive back injury at Fall Brawl 1998 when he got backdrop on the Ultimate Warrior's trapdoor, and he should have retired after that. Let's be honest, he should never have made that comeback. And then of course, the tragedy of 1999 when he came back and do it for 1999. But he looked awful. He looked out of shape. He couldn't really do anything. He looked miserable. Especially, although I did think he had a pretty cool Attitude Era theme. You remember that rock style song he had. And admittedly, the jeans and boots made him look kind of gritty and kind of cool for that era. But the whole run was just awful, and it really just it was so sad to watch. That's probably as far as wrestling comebacks go, that's got to be amongst the worst ever, hasn't it, really? Then, of course, by that point, he's massively addicted to drugs and all that, and of course, he goes away, you don't hear much about it, then he dies in 2002, and then you hear, then you know about all the demons he had and stuff, and then when he was on drugs, he may have not have been the best guy and all that, and some horrible stories about him that you've heard that kind of put you off, that I don't really want to go into detail on here. Pretty sure some people know what I'm talking about. So, besides, but those bad few years, last few years, isn't enough to make me forget about all the great memories I had of Davey Boy Smith, especially from 92 to 97. So yeah, so British Bulldog number 5. At number 4, oh yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage, oh yeah. I mean, when you think of total packages in wrestling, you've got to think Randy Savage. I mean, oftentimes you'll get a guy who's awesome in the ring, but not so awesome on promos. Or the other way, you'll have a guy who's awesome on promos, but not so good in the ring. Or you have guys who are good at both, but you can't. Maybe a guy's an awesome babyface, not so good as a heel. Or the other way, someone could be an awesome heel, not a great babyface. Whereas I think Randy Savage had all of that. I mean, if you think about this, for these reasons, Randy Savage is one of the greatest performers of all time. So, awesome in the ring, awesome on the microphone, awesome babyface, awesome heel. Can wrestle people bigger than him, can wrestle people the same size as him, can wrestle people smaller than him, can brawl, can have a technical match, can do high flying stuff. There wasn't really much at all that Randy Savage couldn't do that he did in his career. Now, sad to say, I mean, I didn't see Macho Man at his absolute peak. I mean, I didn't see him until 1992, like live. But of course, when you think Randy Savage's peak, of course, was the mid to late 80s in the WWF as the Macho Man Randy Savage. And of course, there was no way of me seeing his pre-WWF stuff in stuff like his dad's ICW promotion, Memphis wrestling with feuding with Jerry Lawler and all that, and other territories as well. Didn't really see that, and in fairness, even now, I've only seen a small handful of that shit. But then, of course, it's 1985, he went to the big leagues, like most other wrestlers of that generation. This was 84, 85 was the time that Vince was really taking over the world, scooping up as much talent he could from rival organisations. Macho Man came in, was tremendous right off the bat. You knew this guy was maybe the best all-round performer in the company. Yes, Hogan was the man, and don't get me wrong, Hogan was drawn everything, but Macho Man was just so much more talented all round, in my opinion. And of course, the big story him coming in, because if you remember 85, this was the era of managers where you had loads of managers, like for Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Slick, Mr. Fuji, Freddie Blassie, all those guys, and they were all vying for the services of the Macho Man, because, well, why wouldn't you? Hot, young, well, he wasn't a young guy, but a hot, new talent coming in. But it turns out Macho Man picked none of these guys. He picked an attractive young lady by the name of Miss Elizabeth. And of course, if you know your history, Elizabeth was Macho Man's real life wife. And that was a great package. I mean, Elizabeth was as vital to the Macho Man package as anyone. I feel like Macho Man would have been successful on his own. Grant, absolutely, of course he would. But him and Elizabeth as a double act was just magic. And for me, even to this day, wrestling's best ever couple. I mean, you could throw Triple H and Stephanie at me, but we'll never have the appeal of Macho Man and Elizabeth. And then, of course, Savage, fairly early into his run, becomes the Intercontinental Champion, beating Tito Santana in February 1986. Has an 11-month reign as champion. I mean, kind of wish he didn't spend so much time in that reign, fannying on with George the Animal Steel. Wish he'd had better opposition, especially WrestleMania 2. Really wish they'd give him a better... Maybe him and Santana should have had another match at WrestleMania 2. I mean, to be honest, and of course... Obviously, I didn't see a lot of these matches till later on, but you watch them and you watch the standard that they do have in-ring performances at that time. You've got to say, Macho Man and Steamboat. So Savage and Steamboat were definitely above the rest of them for sure. I mean, yeah, Hogan was drawing the crowds. Hogan was getting great pops. But was he outperforming Macho Man? No way in hell. And for me, anyway, Macho Man for me is still the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Or 31 years later, and of course, you can't talk about this run without talking about WrestleMania 3. Epic match with Steamboat. I mean, obviously I didn't see this match till like... I bet I didn't see this match till like 97, 98 maybe. But I think if I'd watched this match at 1987, this would probably be in my top 5 favourite matches of all time. But because I didn't see it live, it's not quite in that bracket. But obviously at that time, the best match that ever put on. I mean, obviously a lot of the in-ring work from that era does not hold up today. This match absolutely does. It's an awesome match in 2017 as it is in 1987, and it'll be an awesome match in 2037 as well. I mean, that's one of those timeless classics. I mean, there's certain matches and moments that live forever and are timeless, and this is absolutely one of them. Then of course, big babyface turn later that year, team with Hulk Hogan as a Mega Powers, which again, gutted I missed out on that run, to be honest with you. I feel like if I'd watched wrestling at that time and I'd seen that stuff live, would have been, and I can still appreciate it because I've seen it back and all that, but not on the level that I would if I'd saw it live. I mean, obviously then he goes in and wins the championship at WrestleMania 4 in that tournament. Mega Powers are running for a while. Then obviously cracks start to pay attention, starts to be building. Then of course the Mega Powers explode in 1989. Savage attacks Hogan, turns heel, sets up the epic WrestleMania 5 main event where Savage drops the title to Hogan in the same arena he won it in the Trump Plaza in Atlantic City. I mean, that is arguably, that's got to be top 3 to 5 at least storylines in WWF/WWE history. It's got to be Hogan Savage's Mega Powers run to Mega Powers exploding from late 87 to 89. I mean, wow. Then of course obviously the Macho King thing. Not a big fan of the Macho King gimmick, to be honest with you. That's kind of meh. That's probably one of the more lamer parts of Savage's career, in my opinion, for sure. Then of course, but it did lead to an epic retirement match. Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 7, a classic, an absolute. I love that match. Again, another match I wish I'd seen as it happened, not like later on. I probably didn't see that match till maybe 94, 95, because actually, I had my cousin at the time had an older, she's older than me, but the boyfriend was like maybe 14 or something, maybe 13, 14, something like that, and I was like 10, 9, 10 maybe. So he obviously watched wrestling before me, and he had a lot of these old 80s and early 90s shows on a VHS, and he used to let me borrow his VHSs. So that's when I really started watching the older stuff. That's how I got introduced to a lot of the older stuff, and that's when I started seeing the Savage's earlier run, which I fucking love. Then obviously that magical moment of Savage and Elizabeth reuniting at WrestleMania 7. Again, wish I'd seen that as it happened. Amazing moment. Still one of the best iconic WrestleMania moments of all time from 26 years later. And then obviously they got kayfabe married at SummerSlam 1991. And then obviously the epic Savage Jake Roberts feud. Again, another feud I wish I'd seen live. But honestly, that was an amazing feud as well, which led to Savage coming out of retirement to fight the Snake. And obviously 1992 comes around. For various reasons that I don't really want to get into, Hogan and Flair at WrestleMania 8 scrapped. Macho Man takes his place in the feud of Flair. Wins the WWF Championship, and this is when a couple of months after this, when I started watching wrestling. So, as a 5-year-old kid watching wrestling, the first guy I know as WWF champion is Macho Man Randy Savage. So that's when I started watching during Savage's 1992 title reign and the big feud with Flair, where after that, that obviously let this whole Savage Warrior going to SummerSlam. That really cool storyline, in my opinion, with Mr. Perfect offering his services to the highest bidder to be his manager for the title match at SummerSlam, and the whole tension, the build-up of whose corner is Mr. Perfect going to be in. Then, of course, it turned out to be a big swerve. It was neither. The whole plan was to Perfect and Flair to soften up this champion, so Ric Flair could swoop in and win the title, which is what happened. And obviously after that, Savage started becoming a commentator and all that, and obviously the career was winding down. Vince was winding down his career, which I thought was a big mistake. Then probably one of these last great feuds in the WWF. I loved that feud of Crush in 1993, 1994. I think that's when Crush turned heel on Savage in 93. He became Evil Crush with Mr. Fuji. That's one of the most underrated heel turns of all time, in my opinion. If you remember at the Savage Crush Summit, I'm sure all the fans will remember that. And I really so wanted Savage to beat Crush up. I really wanted to see that. And probably an awesome match I remember as a child. Well, it was not a great match, but a great moment. Savage and Yokozuna for the title in February 1994 on Raw. This was a chance for Savage to win the title back and turn the WrestleMania main event scene right upside down, because now it would be Savage, Hart and Luger three-way situation for the title. I mean, that match, there's so many times that match where it looked like, holy shit, Savage is going to win the title. Of course, Crush cost him the belt, and then that led to WrestleMania 10, that weird false count anywhere match that they had, which that was really Savage's last hurrah. And of course went to WCW after that, so saw him in WCW, which I thought was obviously, I think WCW run showed that Vince should have kept on to Savage. He shouldn't have give Savage a reason to leave. I mean, yeah, he wasn't in his prime anymore, but he still had a hell of a lot to offer. I mean, he had some good stuff in WCW, like his feud with Ric Flair in 95, win the title at World War III, obviously turning heel, join the NWO in 97, the awesome Savage DDP rivalry in 1997, of course, really great story. And in 1998, that's when he got the knee injury. Then, unfortunately, the last few memories of Savage are not happy ones, of course. That 1999 run in WCW kind of sucked, to be honest. Yeah, some of his promos were good and all that, and obviously having all the women around him made him look cool, but he got himself so pumped up onto steroids, and he just kind of looked like he was having a midlife crisis. And obviously after the knee injury, and obviously bulking up like that really sapped him with his in-ring skills. Then obviously he left in 1999, and then obviously after that everybody came back to the WWE except Savage. I mean, I'm sure you all heard the rumours as to why, which I'm not going to get into that here. I mean, there's no point in doing that. And then obviously, of course, Savage had the faintest of comebacks in 2004 for TNA, but that sucked, to be honest. I mean, Savage didn't have it anymore. He looked awful. He didn't really do anything in that 6-man tag match. It just looked bad. And then the rumour and the innuendo is that they were going to do Jeff Jarrett and Randy Savage at Final Resolution 2005, but Savage wanted to win the title, but of course that wasn't going to happen. TNA wanted Savage to put Jarrett over, so Savage quit the promotion and then never wrestled again. And he's one of the few guys to actually retire and not come back. And of course, he really was out of the public eye for many, many years. Which was it? I'm trying to think of when it was. 2010, maybe. I think it was 2010. Mattel did a Macho Man action figure. I don't think the WWF Jacks ever did one. Classic Superstars. I mean, I'm not a current figure collector. I've got my Hasbros and all that, but anyone who used to collect Jack's Classic Superstars, if Randy Savage actually had a Jack's figure, can you comment in the section below? So Mattel made one, and then Savage did it was on YouTube. I remember seeing it on YouTube. Savage cutting a promo with the action figure, and I thought, oh, this is cool as fuck. So, and of course 2011, because obviously because of whatever reason, I mean, past heat, I suppose, we all know what the rumour is, that so for all those years, like when all the WWF started putting legends on these video games, Savage was always omitted. I mean, he was famously omitted from Legends of WrestleMania in 2009. That was probably like the most glaring admission ever. But then he featured in WWE All Stars in early 2011, and he cut a promo for that as well. Which by this time Savage had the big beard, grey hair. He didn't look anything like Savage in his prime anymore, but he still had the oh yeah Macho Man voice. Then of course after that, May 2011, all tragedy, passes away, had a heart attack causing a car accident. And it's just sad that he never went in the Hall of Fame while he was alive. Obviously he was inducted in 2015, of course, but it was after his death, so it wasn't quite the same, in my opinion anyway. And obviously now, but Savage's legacy still lives on. I mean, Macho Man is definitely one of the absolute all-time greats in professional wrestling, and he is my number 4. Now we're getting to number 3, and number 3 is the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. It might surprise people who know who my number 1 is as to why I would like number 2, 3 so much, but I have reasons. So Shawn Michaels, my opinion, greatest in-ring performer of all time, especially in the US anyway. Yeah, there might be guys like Misawa and Kobashi who were better than him, but for what I saw, for especially like mainstream USA, Shawn Michaels especially, my God, unbelievable performer. Obviously, I missed out on Shawn's Rockers run at the time. I didn't get to wrestle until 1992, where by the time Shawn Michaels was already doing the Sexy Boy Baby, the heel run of Sensational Sherry, which I'll get into in a sec. But of course, Shawn's career goes beyond that. Obviously, he first got in the national scene, the AWA, in the mid-80s with Marty Jannetty's The Midnight Rockers. So notice the difference in the name there. Have that big feud with Buddy Rose and Doug Summers over the AWA Tag Team titles for a solid year, and the chemistry was fantastic. I mean, you had the young, high-flying baby faces and all the girls liked and all that against the rugged veterans, like wrestlers, guys didn't lay their feet very often, were grounded guys, and it was just awesome rivalry. And then of course the Rockers, they were briefly in 87, but they got fired after like 2 days. Finally come to the WF in 1988, and if you look at the wrestling in 1988, especially in the WWF, the Rockers were totally different to anything they had. I mean, they brought that high-flying, fast-paced style to the US. I mean, not many guys at all were doing that in '88. The WWF. I mean, we'd seen people like Steamboat and Savage, and even Bret was a smaller guy, but he was still more grounded and technical. So he wasn't really going to the top rope too much. And it's amazing the depth of the talent roster in the tag team division in like 88, 89, 90, 91, that the Rockers were never officially the WWF Tag Team Champions. I mean, I love watching the Rockers and Brainbusters matches. Those are classics from 89. Just awesome stuff. Really, really good stuff. Suppose the sort of matches Revival versus the Young Bucks today could have if the stars ever aligned and they were ever in the same company at the same time. With obviously Young Bucks being the Rockers' place and Revival being Arn and Tully. Rockers Orient Express had some good matches. Obviously the whole thing of 1990 where they won the tag team titles from the Hart Foundation, but then the ring ropes broke, and then the match was really unairable. You couldn't really use that on television, so instead of just redoing the match, Vince had changed his mind and decided to keep the tag team titles on the Hart Foundation. Then of course Shawn Michaels really becomes a star in early 1992 where he turned on Marty Jannetty in the barbershop. That epic heel turn, the barbershop of her, where the Rockers split up. Shawn hit the super kick, and then Marty Jannetty, that fucking coward, dived through the dive through the barbershop window to get away from Shawn Michaels. Now, some people might tell you that Shawn Michaels threw Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window, but they are liars. Marty Jannetty was such a coward that he jumped through the window to get away from Shawn. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But then, of course, after that, Shawn reinvents himself as a Heartbreak Kid, takes on Sensational Sherry as his manager, changes his outfit and his look and his whole... I think it's cause obviously you could tell, young guy like Shawn Michaels back then, not in a homosexual way, but a good-looking guy. I mean, I think it's fair to say back then Shawn Michaels had no problem getting snatch. And yes, I know how vulgar that sounds, but so I apologise for that. So yeah, basically, back then Shawn Michaels had no problem getting laid, like a lot of us probably do. So Shawn Michaels, I'm assuming with that, Shawn Michaels is a naturally very cocky guy, a very arrogant young man. So turning heel allowed him to show that, and then obviously through 92, 90, so this is when I started watching wrestling, when Shawn Michaels was doing that stuff, and then feuding with Bret over the Intercontinental title. One of the funniest memories of SummerSlam 1992 was when watching the storyline of Shawn Michaels and Rick Martel, where they were fighting over Sherry, and because they were both sexy guys apparently, according to Sherry. Sherry didn't want Shawn and Rick to hit each other in the face, and then he started doing it, and Sherry pretended to faint to get their attention and all that. That's amusing stuff. And then obviously Shawn becomes the Intercontinental Champion, and then just develops even more over 92, 93. So now you're seeing just how good he is. I mean, he was fast on track becoming one of the best wrestlers in the world. Awesome matches with Marty Jannetty in 93, and then of course the character evolves where Shawn, obviously, early 1993, broke away from Sherry, was on his own for a little bit, but then he needed something more, so in comes Kevin Nash, this 6'10" monster. He's rechristened Diesel as Shawn Michaels' bodyguard, and that chemistry was awesome as well, actually. Loved that chemistry with Shawn and Diesel, and of course, one of my favourite rivalries growing up, Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon over the Intercontinental title. This was after Shawn had been suspended and stripped of the Intercontinental title. In the meantime, Razor had become the Intercontinental Champion. Then there was this big dispute over who the real Intercontinental Champion was. Was it Shawn Michaels? Was it Razor Ramon? Shawn Michaels had the original belt that he was still carrying around, so they settled in an epic way at WrestleMania 10 by hanging both belts high above the ring. Then they got a ladder and had a ladder match, with the winner becoming the real true Intercontinental Champion. And that match, still to this day, one of my top 5 favourite wrestler matches of all time. Blown away by it in 1994, still holds up in 2007. I suppose in that sense it's a lot like the Savage Steamboat match at WrestleMania 3, which I talked about earlier. The timeless classic. I mean, it changed the business forever. I mean, there was ladder matches in Stampede Wrestling back in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, Bret and Shawn had an untelevised one at 1992, but this was the first one on a mainstream pay-per-view. And it showed, like, you don't have to have your mundane, normal wrestling match anymore all the time. I mean, you could do different things, like you could have a ladder match and do something cool and exciting and innovative. I mean, so this is a 5-star match in 1994. It's still a 5-star match in 2017, and it'll be likely a 5-star match 30 years from now. I mean, it's one of those matches that you have to see. I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, this is a match you must see. If you haven't seen this match and you've got the net or even the internet, well, obviously you do have the internet in general, or you wouldn't be watching this video, but it's very easily accessible. You could go and watch Shawn and Razor at WrestleMania 10. Then, of course, Shawn and Diesel become tag team champions later on and then break up. And then Shawn Michaels has a breakout year in 1995, winning the 1995 Royal Rumble, which upset me as a kid, which I explained earlier. But kind of funny, Shawn and Diesel at WrestleMania 11. That was a good match, not a great one. And then obviously after that, Shawn Michaels turns babyface. So then obviously Now Shawn Michaels was a babyface, and as a kid I could start being a Shawn Michaels fan now. Now it was one of those ones where I liked Shawn Michaels, but I didn't love Shawn Michaels because obviously Bret Hart was my guy. I mean, I did like Shawn, yeah, but for me, Bret was the man then for me, which obviously we'll get into in a little while. So I didn't love Shawn as much as I loved Bret, and then obviously this led to WrestleMania. This led to 1996. The Big Show. Obviously the whole angle with Shawn collapsing in the middle of the ring after the concussion. At the time, bought hook, line, and sinker. It looked like one of the most real things that WWF had ever done at that point. They made an effort to make this look real, and it 100% did look real. It was amazing. It was really, honestly, I thought it was fucking brilliant. And then of course, going to 1996 Royal Rumble, Shawn Michaels wins that. The big showdown with Bret, and what a good childhood story. Well, another one. So at the time, I had a best friend at school. We both watched wrestling. His favourite wrestler was Shawn Michaels. My favourite wrestler was Bret Hart. So that was a big thing. We argued about it for weeks and weeks who was going to win. I was adamant that Bret was going to beat Shawn and keep the title. He was a Shawn Michaels guy. Then of course the WrestleMania 12 match happened, and I loved the build up of that match, and I loved that match as well. I mean, because I was watching it as a child at the time, so I probably like that match more than, say, if you're an 17, 18-year-old person. I'll probably like that match more than you because childhood memories and whatnot. And then, of course, Shawn Michaels wins the fucking title, wins it for Bret, and oh my god, I got some stick for a while after that. Yep, I'd eat some humble pie after that because my friend was right. Shawn Michaels beat Bret Hart to win the WWF title, so got a lot of stick for that one. And after that, it was kind of funny because even in 1996, I could tell that Shawn Michaels wasn't a very good babyface. I mean, I could tell that he was a dick, if you know what I mean. I mean, because they tried to make Shawn Michaels his goody two-shoes, nicey nice babyface. Hi, I'm going to do my best for you fans, my clique, because I'm Shawn Michaels and I love you all. That type of babyface, but of course, this was 1996 and that wasn't really cutting anymore. It was just unnatural. I mean, you could tell Shawn Michaels was a dick. Like, even I could tell then that Shawn Michaels was actually a dick in real life, and this wasn't really him. Although I appreciate the amazing matches he was having. But then, of course, so yeah, even as a young fan, I could tell that Shawn Michaels was a dick. And he was really, looking back, you got to think, like, 1996, Shawn Michaels, as awesome as he was in the ring, he was one of the most unlikable babyface of all time. Kind of reminds me of someone now, Roman Reigns. But yeah, he's really unlikable in that role. And of course, all this shit with Bret and Shawn goes down in 96, 97. And of course, I end up really not liking Shawn in that period because of my allegiances with Bret. It was a weird one. Like, I wanted to hate Shawn so much, but he was so good that I found it really, really difficult to hate him because he was like that good. In the ring, he entertained me so much. And obviously, I wasn't a fan of the character Shawn Michaels, but loved the performer. And doesn't that sound like someone familiar with so many wrestling fans? Can't really put my finger on who it might be. Maybe some of the initials are. But anyway, but then of course, we get to really see the real Shawn Michaels when he turns heel, starts forming DX, and because this is when I was getting a little bit older now, so I was really starting to understand more things about life and stuff, and I was like all the sexual innuendos. I was starting to understand what it all meant and stuff, and so the DX stuff was just fucking. I'm trying to think how old I was. Yeah, I was 10 going. Was I 10 going on? No. I was 11. Right. I'm getting so old now. I can't even remember how old I was at certain periods of time sometimes. But yeah, when the whole DX thing went down, that was some of the most entertaining television of all time. I mean, it's, when I look back now, some of it's not as good as I thought it was in like 97, 98, because a lot of it, the punchline is basically penis. That was basically it for some of them, of course. But then, of course, Bret left Montreal, screw job happened, so obviously, so not a big fan of Shawn's in that period because of his involvement in that. Then obviously I got massively behind Austin in Austin's quest to become the champion. That happened. Then Shawn went away for a while, and then it was really after that I became a big Shawn Michaels fan when we get to his second run. So after that, Shawn would periodically come in. He was a commissioner for a while, but of course he was having these personal issues, drug problems and all that, which I don't want to get into too much. But then Shawn Michaels came back in 2002, and this is where I became a big Shawn Michaels fan, because think about it now, Bret was out the picture, retired completely. He probably wasn't coming back. Shawn was a different guy now. He wasn't such a dick anymore. And I honestly feel like his 2002 to 2010 run was better than his original. I really, really do. Obviously, so invested in that match of Triple H at SummerSlam 2002. Was so excited to see that. That match blew me away at the time. Still one of my favourite matches of all time, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, SummerSlam 2002. And I thought it was really cool to see him get that world title reign at Survivor Series 2002 inside the Elimination Chamber. Really loved that. Then, of course, that led to Shawn and Jericho. Loved that feud going into WrestleMania 19. Then, obviously, Shawn Michaels comes back after 5 WrestleManias away to do what he did so many times in the past, and that's steal the show at WrestleMania. Then after that was really when Shawn Michaels' run became more of a full... Well, obviously, I think he had a limited house show schedule and shit like that, but as far as TV goes, pretty much a full-time run. I mean, he would take breaks from injuries here and there and stuff like that, so throughout 2003, Shawn Michaels wrestled far more frequently. Then, of course, 2004, same thing. Main event feud with Triple H again. Main event at WrestleMania of Triple H and the Invisible Man, where Triple H tapped out to nobody, and then this mysterious Invisible Man was holding the World Heavyweight title. Yeah, just kidding. You know what I'm talking about. Chris Benoit, of course. Then, of course, 2005. 2005. Loved Shawn's 2005 as well. Obviously, the big match of Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. That was a dream match for me, and I've been pretty much waiting for since Shawn came back and it finally happened. And I think I did a match retrospective on that one at some point, so if you want to find out more about that, that's in my archives and stuff. Obviously, that match was pretty much blow away. It was a really awesome match. Shawn Michaels tapped out. Then the Shawn Michaels Hulk Hogan feud. I mean, there's a lot of controversy about it. I loved that build-up of that match. I mean, that was one of the ones where I was really behind Shawn when he was talking shit about Hogan. I was like, yeah, Shawn, you're right. Hogan does live off his reputation. You do go out there every night and reinvent yourself. Yeah. So I really wanted Shawn Michaels to beat Hulk Hogan at that SummerSlam. Obviously, that didn't happen. And then got 2006 DX Revival, which is what it was. I mean, it was obviously, it wasn't how it was, because Triple H is married to the McMahon family now. Shawn Michaels is a born-again Christian, so they weren't really authentic degenerates anymore, and it was what it was. And then, obviously, I think Shawn had great 2007 and 2008. Shawn main event at WrestleMania again with Cena. The great feud of Randy Orton later that year. WrestleMania 28. Because obviously, most, except for the Vince one, the WrestleMania 22, but that's understandable because it wasn't meant to be a show-stealing WrestleMania match. And Vince was 60 at the time. Yeah. So apart from the Vince Street fight at WrestleMania 22, Shawn Michaels had stolen the show at every single WrestleMania he had been on since he came back. And he did it again in the awesome title match of Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24. I just really wish that was Flair's last one. I mean, Ric Flair kind of tainted that match a little bit by coming back in 2009. He first to wrestle on the Hulkamania tour in Australia, and then wrestled a few matches in TNA in 2010, 2011. So I really wish Flair had left, to quote the music, to leave the memories alone, and left that match alone. Let that be the last one. And of course, 2 more epic matches, Shawn. 2009 to WrestleMania 25, Shawn the Undertaker, blow-away match, 5-star match. And then of course, Shawn finally retired in 2010 after losing a career versus streak match to the Undertaker. Perfect way to end his career. And something else that I love about Shawn Michaels is he's one of the very, very, very few wrestlers to keep the word. That happened in 2010. Here we are, well over 7 years later, and Shawn hasn't come back, and he's probably not going to. But it's ironic, like, when you saw the shape Shawn Michaels got into for WrestleMania 32, sorry, because I was thinking 26, 2006. So for WrestleMania 32, where Shawn, Austin and Mick Foley did that running against the League of Nations, the shape Shawn Michaels in, honest to God, like, I'm convinced if Shawn Michaels got time to train, he'd come back and he'd probably still be better than 90% of the roster today. Like, I really think that, even at the age of 52, I feel like Shawn could come back and blow them all away still. I mean, the massive online speculation this year that we were going to get to see Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles at the Royal Rumble 2017 in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. And that's even me can confirm, because AJ Styles admitted that he pushed for that match. He pretty much just said, does anyone know if Shawn would come back to face me? And then they said no. Then AJ Styles was like, well, could you ask him? Because AJ is thinking, at least if they ask him, the worst thing that could happen is you can say no and it doesn't happen. So, but the best thing, maybe he would have done it. But obviously Shawn kept his word, stayed out of the ring. But it would have been interesting, wouldn't it, if Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles had wrestled this year. But I'm glad he didn't, because I really loved the end of Shawn Michaels' career, and I'm glad that was it for him, really. And I hope he doesn't come back, because obviously, I think when wrestlers have been in ring for a certain amount of time, they either not so good early in their careers, or once they get older and more injured and stuff, their in-ring performances start to decline. I mean, but Shawn Michaels was, From the time, you've got to remember when he went to the AWA, Shawn Michaels was a 20-year-old kid back then, and he was really good then. And obviously, as he got a little older, I mean, last match of his career with The Undertaker was an awesome match. So Shawn Michaels never really lost a step at any time in his career, really. He was always very good to awesome from pretty much all of his career. So we've got the Heartbreak Kid at number 3. Now let's clock into number 2. And who is number 2? Number 2 is The Rock. That's right. For my Attitude Era favourite, The Rock. Bit like Edge, I suppose. This is a guy that I saw his career from start to finish, to a young kid named Rocky Maivia with bad hair, to one of the biggest movie stars in the world, iconic Rock. What a rise it was for The Rock. I mean, I love The Rock. Obviously, Stone Cold was probably the top guy in the Attitude Era, at least definitely in the beginning. And at the start of the Attitude Era, I was definitely a Stone Cold guy. But as time went on, I just loved The Rock so much. I would say by about mid-1999, I switched over and became a Rock guy, and was a Rock guy through his career, which I understand. Obviously, going to Hollywood was the absolute right move for him and all that, but selfishly, I wish I had a lot more years of The Rock, which we never got. Obviously, for me, The Rock is, you want to talk charisma, microphone skills, The Rock is the best, without a doubt, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, there's been some awesome microphone guys over the years, some absolute legendary microphone guys, but for me, for pure charisma, nobody ever matched The Rock, in my opinion. The Rock has the greatest microphone skills, amazing charisma, and look what he did. I mean, he transcended wrestling. I mean, I would say Hogan and Austin were bigger stars than The Rock as far as wrestling goes, but I think of all the wrestlers to transition out of the business into another venture, it's got to be The Rock, hasn't it? I mean, Hogan had, let's face it, Hogan's movie career was moderately successful. A few good, a few bad, but The Rock just really took it to a whole nother level. So, yeah, obviously back in the day when this Rocky Maivia kid came through, it was I liked him, but it was kind of the character just sucked balls, really, didn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, I've talked about the Rocky Maivia in other videos. Other people's talked about before, so I'm pretty sure most people know the backstory of Rocky Maivia. Just in the complete wrong era, just a bad gimmick and all that. But obviously, even then, you can see this third generation guy, fucking just talent. You think, and obviously he was very young as well. I think he was 24 when he debuted at Survivor Series 1996. So you're thinking, with his pedigree and all that, you think, even then you could tell he was going to be good. And I remember being shocked when he won the Intercontinental title in 1997. But then it wasn't really till he turned heel, joined the Nation Domination, that I really started liking The Rock, because I was starting to like know more about that, and I was kind of liking some of the bad guys as well. I just thought this man was cool. I mean, just the way he talked in third person, when you say The Rock says, The Rock does, The Rock is, all that. So you know what I'm on about. Then obviously as he joins the Nation, he ends up leading the Nation of Domination into 1998, and the rise of The Rock in 1998 was just incredible. I mean, just so entertaining. The Nation DX rivalry, that was amazing. And obviously through this time he was just getting better and better as a performer. Really, I was watching The Rock develop him into a superstar, and of course, breakout match SummerSlam 1998 with versus Triple H. I think that's when I was really sold on The Rock. This guy, it's going to be something special, and I just fucking, of course, can't talk about this period. Then obviously after that he turned face, got so popular. So it's kind of funny. It started with Rocky sucks, die, Rocky die. The Rock turned out into the heel run, got himself even more hated, but The Rock threw back at them. The Rock got so entertaining that the same people who used to hate The Rock ended up loving The Rock. And then, amazing, obviously it loved the build up in the Survivor Series in 1998. So this time I was still Stone Cold. Stone Cold was still my guy, but Rock was definitely creeping up into a nice number 2 spot. I mean, then of course, I could talk about this in another time, in another video. I think I've talked about this before, but the epic, absolute epic Swerve at Survivor Series 1998, still one of my favourite all-time, probably one of my all-time favourite heel turns, and maybe I'll do a heel turn video or something like that at some point. That heel turn then became the corporate champion. It was one of those ones, because at the time I hated Vince and I hated the corporation, but I could not hate The Rock, because the guy was just so entertaining. And of course, the feud with Mankind, classic feud there, through 98 and 99, and of course, main event in WrestleMania of Austin, some of the stuff they were doing there. Like I said before, loved the bit where The Rock knocked Austin off the bridge, and pretended to throw the Smoking Skull belt off. Did the fake funeral for Austin, and then Austin turned up in a fucking monster truck and destroyed The Rock's car. Fucking brilliant. But then, after The Rock turned babyface, right after Backlash in 1999, that is when it really happened for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love Stone Cold Steve Austin, I really did. Obviously, he's on this list, as you remember. But really, I was really becoming a Rock guy. Loved his catchphrases and all that. And I think I was at just about the right age as well. I mean, obviously Bret Hart had been my hero through childhood, but now I was doing my teenage years. I mean, I turned 13 in September of 1999, so needed a new guy to carry me into the teenage years. That was The Rock. I mean, so I really dug his jokes and all that. He was just so funny. Some of his promos and how he would just mock his opponents and all that sort of stuff. But he did it in a way that he didn't bury his opponent's abilities, if that makes sense. Unlike certain people in the WWE now, people who you might not be able to see. But yeah, The Rock did it, and the way The Rock did it was kind of almost an honour to be mocked by The Rock. But you'd never go out and say, this opponent's a loser, I can beat him so easy. And he never... So I think The Rock was a great main eventer. I mean, obviously 1999, Austin's out, and then this is The Rock's real time. So this time that The Rock was officially the top babyface of the company, some of my favourite times watching The Rock. I mean, particularly, obviously, loved The Rock Triple H feud in 2000 in particular. Just the build-up for Backlash, how the McMahon-Helmsley era kept screwing The Rock. Obviously, the whole family were back together now. The odds were all stacked against The Rock. Looked like The Rock was going to face Triple H, but obviously Stephanie was there. Vince was obviously going to get involved, and Linda McMahon put Stone Cold in The Rock's corner. And that match, I mean, build-up and the execution of that match was world-class. I mean, really marked out when The Rock beat Triple H to become the new WWF champion at Backlash 2000. And then, I think, obviously watching the Iron Man match, then you see more of a side that The Rock can do, just more than talk. He can also work in the ring as well. I think that was emphasis when he had that big, they had a good feud with Chris Benoit in the Fully Loaded 2000. I mean, The Rock worked extremely well with a Benoit, a Kurt Angle. Then obviously into 2001, Austin was back. And this is, I love this because that was Austin versus The Rock in 2001. But I was so solidly behind The Rock. Like, I kind of knew he was going to go to Hollywood, so I knew he was probably going to lose to Austin. Or even if he didn't, the whole thing is more about Austin's comeback, so it's probably likely that The Rock was going to lose the title to Austin at WrestleMania anyway. But then The Rock lost and obviously went to Hollywood and all that, and obviously this is pretty much the beginning of the end. I mean, The Rock did come back in 2001, had another great run as Chris Jericho actually. Another thing I love about The Rock, I mean, for me The Rock is one of the most unselfish main eventers ever. I mean, you get certain guys, even Austin, you can see, you look back at Austin's run, who did he actually put over really? Not very many guys, but The Rock worked with people like Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, I mean, Brock Lesnar in 2002. I mean, I heard Bruce Pritchard's podcast, and I've probably talked about this in the videos before, but that's my favourite podcast right now. Something to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard talking about SummerSlam 2002. Pritchard revealed it was actually The Rock who actually insisted on putting Brock Lesnar over at SummerSlam 2002. So 2002, obviously that was when The Rock was getting a bit backlash from the fans, particularly in the Hogan feud and stuff like that. But I got it. I mean, yeah, some people were dicks to The Rock in that era, in my opinion, but I got it. I mean, he done all. I mean, look at it. He did all this in his mid to late 20s. I mean, by the time he was 30, he'd already headlined 3 WrestleManias. He'd already been a WWE champion 6 times, something like that. He was already a megastar, and then he got an opportunity to go to Hollywood, go to acting. He made all the money in wrestling. He did everything he could in wrestling, really. Then he went out there and did that and became a major star, of course. Then probably one of my favourite periods of The Rock's career in 2003, when he took all the backlash, turned heel and became Hollywood Rock. That was brilliant. That was brilliant from The Rock. I mean, he took that hate, turned heel, threw it all back in the fans' face, but it was so entertaining doing it that by the time it was over, the fans were cheering him again. So who really won? The Rock. Then of course Hollywood became The Rock's full-time job. 2004 his last match, and after that you think that's it. That was a great career, but that's probably going to be the last we're going to see of The Rock. And it was for a long time. Before Rock's never going to wrestle again. Years goes by, still no Rock. I mean, he did a little pre-tape promo in 2007 about the Vince and Donald Trump Battle of the Billionaires, but I feel that was at the same time he was recording something for a DVD. 2009, the 10th anniversary of SmackDown, he did another promo from his house, I think. Can't remember what it was all about, but he teased guest hosting Raw during that guest host era, but I'm guessing due to Hollywood commitments and whatnot, that deal couldn't be sorted out. And then 2011, there was talk of a guest host of WrestleMania, and all the speculation was talking. A lot of people thought it was going to be The Rock, and it was. One of my probably the biggest mark-out moments of the last 10 years for me, with The Rock coming back in February 2011, cutting that. I tell you what, that promo was unbelievable in my opinion. I thought that was just an amazing promo. Then of course, that led into the big thing with Cena, agreeing to fight Cena at WrestleMania 28. And obviously we didn't see The Rock as much, and at times it wasn't the best. I mean, I would say 2013 some of his promos weren't as good, but obviously I dug the build up The Rock and Cena at WrestleMania 28. Marked the fuck out when The Rock beat him. Loved that. Then of course after that I could have done without The Rock beating CM Punk for the title. I certainly could have done without seeing The Rock 2 at WrestleMania 29. And that's, well, I'm going to call that Rock's last match, because I refuse to count the Rock and Eric Rowan match in WrestleMania 32, because it wasn't really a match and it was a bit stupid. So in the back of my mind, I would love to see The Rock wrestle at least one more time, because I just feel like losing to a match to Cena where the fans didn't really want to see, and in a obviously, manufactured moment of Cena endorsing the Rock, Rock endorsing Cena at the end, and that didn't really go down particularly well. It just kind of seems like I don't know, it just doesn't feel like the right match for him to go out on. So I would love to see him have one more last match. Who that is, I'm not sure. I mean, there was talk of Triple H at WrestleMania 32. I would like that, especially since I loved the feud back in the day, but be nice to see The Rock face a younger guy. Maybe a heel Roman Reigns versus The Rock could be the answer. Maybe. Just throwing that one out there. Obviously, Rock and Roman are related, so The Rock puts over his cousin Roman Reigns on his last match, maybe. That could be an idea. Hell, some people's even thought Hollywood versus Hollywood, The Rock versus The Miz. Now, let's be honest. It's a match that would be alright, but I think the promos would be blistering. So I wouldn't that at all. But anyway, so that's number 2 in The Rock. Obviously, number 1 is no surprise to most people. Number 1, of course, Bret the Hitman Hart, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Now this is my list and my opinions. For me, Bret Hart is my personal favourite of all time. He's probably not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I mean, Lord knows we all have different opinions. I mean, a lot of us have a lot of different people we call our favourite wrestler of all time. But this is my videos, and I'm saying Bret Hart's my favourite of all time. For a number of reasons, really. I mean, you got to realise, like, my age group. I turned 31 last week. Yes, I know Prince of Strong Style. Don't you say a word about that. So obviously you think in that time period, I grew up in the 1990s, in my era of wrestling from childhood, which was the early to mid 1990s. And who was the man there? It was Bret the Hitman Hart. So sure, people a little bit younger than me probably grew up in the Attitude Era, probably love Austin, probably the Ruthless Aggression Era kids love their guys and their child. I'm sure kids now probably love John Cena or Roman Reigns, or older kids than me are probably all about Hogan and the Warrior. But for me, it was all about Bret the Hitman Hart. I mean, obviously I missed the first few years of Bret in the WWE. Obviously completely missed his Stampede wrestling days. Really wish I could have seen that. I know all about it though. I mean, I've read his books and all that and watched stuff. But yeah, I really wish that would have been interesting to have seen. And obviously, of course, Bret's 80s run, of course, in the Hart Foundation. Love watching their stuff back. I mean, although I didn't see it at the time, which is a shame, but amazing tag team in that era. You had the big rugged Neidhart and the wrestler and Bret Hart. Kind of feel Neidhart gets a bit underrated though. I mean, I think definitely in the beginning you could say Neidhart was probably the biggest star of the two. It definitely carried the team as far as promos are concerned, and also that was this era of size and big guys, and Neidhart was like pushing 300 pounds, so that gave Hart Foundation the believability, with Bret doing most of the bulk work. And then obviously classic matches of the British Bulldogs, former WWF Tag Team Champions, great match with Demolition, the Rockers, etc. Then obviously 1991 comes around, Bret breaks away from Jim finally, goes into SummerSlam that year, defeats Mr. Perfect. I feel like Bret Hart always had his fan. Like, he was obviously, back then he wasn't the most popular guy. I mean, obviously that was like Hogan and all that, but I feel like Bret Hart definitely had his fans in those days. A lot of fans were behind Bret. What I appreciate, Bret was different. Like, Hogan was like Hogan and Warrior were like the superheroes and all that, invincible. You couldn't beat them. So for me, I think a lot of people found it harder to get behind them, because how can you rally behind someone who's obviously going to win? Whereas Bret just came across as a normal person who had his struggles like everybody else. Bret Hart struggled to his victories, which I feel helped him out a hell of a lot. And then, of course, I got into wrestling in 1992. At that time, Bret was the Intercontinental Champion at that time. He had just beaten Piper at WrestleMania 8. And just it struck a bond with me right away. I mean, I just really loved Bret's style. I mean, yeah, he wasn't the most charismatic guy, and yeah, he wasn't the biggest guy, but in the ring, he was the best at that time, definitely. And there's just something about him, and probably coming from Europe as well. This is where, like, Europe, this continent is where Bret was the most popular. I mean, and obviously apart from Canada, obviously part of his home country in Canada, but definitely was much more popular in places like the UK, Italy, Germany, France and all that. I mean, especially Germany, actually. I mean, he was actually over as fucking Germany. He was over as fucking UK as well. So I guess that influenced me, I suppose. Obviously, stuff like that. Just loved his style there. Loved his leather jacket and the sunglasses and all that. And obviously the big memory I have of him, of course, as I've talked about before, SummerSlam 1992, him and Davey Boy in the main event at Wembley, my first ever WWF pay-per-view. That's my favourite match of all time. And then I think after that, when Bret became the world champion, is when I realised Bret was the man. So Bret was the guy I was going to get behind. I loved Bret Hart. So Bret became the world champion in 1992, going into 1993. Obviously, that run was pretty good overall, I would say. Not fantastic looking back. Obviously, he was new to the role. He was kind of, as he puts it, kind of had to change wrestling, because this was one of the big reasons Bret got the title. First off, definitely right in the right place at the right time. First off, Hogan was gone, Warrior was getting fired, Savage was winding down. And it was just a big boom. The 80s in general was over anyway, so Vince needed a new direction anyway. But of course, 1992, if you remember, that was the big year of the steroid scandal, so Vince had to consciously go with someone who didn't look like they were obviously on steroid. And Bret fit that bill, because yeah, Bret had a good muscular body and athletic body and all that, but he was clearly clean. He was clearly not taking steroids at the time, so he wasn't huge. And obviously Bret was still relatively young. I mean, I think he was 35 when he won his first world title, so you could still get a good few years out of him, which they did. They got like 5 good years out of Bret after that. Oh. If it wasn't for the financial troubles and all that, maybe they could have got a little bit longer out of him, but that's we'll never know that for sure. And then of course, like, Bret wins the King of the Ring in 1993, and had that feud with Jerry Lawler, and I hated Jerry Lawler during that time. Oh God, I hated him. He made me so mad, especially, do you remember when he used to mock Bret's parents, Stu and Helen? We used to make all these fucking horrible jokes with him and all that. I hated him for that. I mean, now I could look at it and I think it's fucking hilarious. I mean, Lawler was a fucking riot during that. Then of course, big memory that all talked about before, the awesome feud with Owen in 94. Bret wins the title back at WrestleMania from Yokozuna. And I loved that when he beat Yokozuna, because Yokozuna had been that Monster Hill champion for so long, and it looked like could anybody beat him, and then Bret did. But I love the way Bret won it. I mean, Bret was like 230 and Yokozuna was like 550 pounds or something, so you couldn't well have Bret just beat Yokozuna up. That'd be stupid. But the way Bret won his Yoko went for the bonsai drop, lost his balance, and then landed on the ring canvas. Then Bret got the pin that way. So Bret played the underdog very well, and I feel like apart from Ricky Steamboat, maybe Bret Hart was the best seller of all time. I think so anyway. Apart from Ricky Steamboat. But he's an awesome ring general. So, and looking back at this era, there's nobody in wrestling whose matches I enjoy watching back more than Bret's. Really don't. And of course, the feud with Owen Hart continues into SummerSlam. Even thought the Bret and Bob Backlund feud was fantastic. I mean, I have great memories of that. I pretty much hated anyone who went against Bret. So I hated Mr. Backlund in that time too. Although now I think Bob Backlund was a fantastic heel. Actually, Mr. Backlund was actually an awesome character, but that's another issue. Then when Bret got screwed out of the title of Survivor Series with Owen getting his mum and dad to throw the towel in, that was just hilarious. In 1995, I mean, obviously I still love Bret Hart, but 1995 was a trying time. I mean, like, you people like complain when your favourite wrestlers like getting fucked over and that now. I mean, obviously sometimes you have a valid point and all that, but consider this: in 1995 I had to watch my favourite wrestler do the following: have a horrible match, I Quit match with Bob Backlund at WrestleMania, open up in your house with a newcomer Hakushi, which, to be fair, that match was great, but it was a reflection of Bret falling down the card, of course. Reigniting a feud with Jerry Lawler, which had already peaked in 1993. Had a ridiculous Kiss My Foot match with Jerry Lawler at King of the Ring 1995. SummerSlam 1995, Bret's matches with Jerry Lawler's personal dentist called Isaac Yankem, DDS. A dentist with bad teeth. Then his next feud was with a pirate called Jean-Pierre Lafitte. And what was the basis of this feud, you ask? Well, Jean-Pierre Lafitte stole Bret Hart's jacket. And Bret Hart had to go around being so mad, I want to kill this guy, he stole my jacket. Now, let's just ignore the fact that Bret was probably a rich man at this point in his life. I mean, he'd been a wrestler for a long time. He'd been a top guy for a good 3-4 years. Why the fuck couldn't Bret just go out and buy another jacket? It really made no sense, did it, really? Yeah, so then after that it picked up. I mean, he got back in the title hunt, won his third title of Survivor Series in 1995 over Diesel, which I loved that match as well. Loved that moment. And of course, 95, 96, the whole thing with Shawn Michaels, which I explained to you before when I talked about Shawn Michaels, the whole situation there. I really was rooting for Bret during that. Really disappointed when he lost the title. But he did some cool stuff in that title, really. Like, awesome match with Bulldog in your house. Thought he had a great match with Undertaker at Royal Rumble 1996. And of course, Bret goes away after WrestleMania that year. Then the whole will he sign or won't he sign? Obviously, got a massive offer from WCW. Vince countered that with a 20-year contract. And then Bret comes back to the WWF in October 1996 to feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Bret Hart and Austin, one of my all-time favourite rivalries. Just loved that feud. Fucking amazing. And then obviously the epic match. Obviously we were champion again for one day in 1997. Had that epic match with Austin at WrestleMania 13. And then obviously that amazing angle of him turning heel in the US, but being a babyface everywhere else, which is awesome. So I could still cheer on Bret, because to me, being in the UK, he was still a babyface. He hadn't turned on me or my country, he'd only turned on America. So then obviously the Hart Foundation 1997, loved that faction, especially when he reunited with Owen and Davey in that amazing segment on Raw. Then Jim Neidhart came back to the WWF to be involved in that. Obviously he wasn't actually an official Hart member, but kind of an honorary Hart since he trained in the dungeon and all that, and got to know the family well. And Brian Pillman going to the Canadian Stampede in 1997. Loved everything about that build up and that match. And then of course Bret gets his 5th world title at SummerSlam 1997 with The Undertaker. Then of course then after that Bret kind of gets shunted down a little bit, stuck in a feud with the Patriot, and then of course that's when Vince drops a bombshell that he wants out of the contract that Vince had consented to, citing financial peril and stuff like that, which kind of interestingly got rid of Bret because he couldn't afford his contract, wink wink. And then several months later pays Mike Tyson $3.5 million to do WrestleMania, but we'll not get into that. Then of course Montreal happens, and I'm not going to open up a huge can of worms over that. I think everyone knows the story there. It's been documented in various documentaries and DVDs, and WWE has their version, Bret has their version. It's been in books. Every load of YouTubers have talked about been articles on it. I'm sure you know the story. Then of course that was pretty heartbreaking because Bret had left the WWF now. So now my promotion, WWF, is no longer as my favourite wrestler. So then obviously I have to watch Bret in WCW, and I have to live with the disappointment of Bret in 1998 in WCW, booking him like crap and genuinely being a major letdown, which is sad. So that was a sad time of Bret's career. And then of course personal tragedies, Owen dying in 1999, and then Bret being gone from WCW for a while, with his career up in the air. Then his emotional return in July 1999, I think it was July, where he talked about Owen and all that, and then he came back later that year, and then finally WCW finally started pushing him. He started getting a nice little push, and then of course he won the WCW World Title in Mayhem in Toronto, and then main event of Starrcade of Goldberg, and it looked like things were finally looking up for him. And then of course the whole thing with Goldberg happens to Starrcade, and then I feel like now Bret's career might have been saved if this happened like in wrestling now, because back then guys just kind of, if they got the bell rung, they just kind of just brush it off and keep going, and that's what Bret did. So I feel like I always wondered if this happened now, Bret got the concussion against Goldberg, and like WCW's medical staff, whatever at the time, could diagnose this fairly quickly. They could have treated Bret and maybe he could have come back, but the problem was Bret kept wrestling for like 2 or 3 weeks after that, so he's already got a concussion, then he's taken more hits, and that's just damaging even more. And of course, diagnosis, post-concussion syndrome, ultimately ended Bret's career in 2000. Then Bret was gone from WCW, and then obviously Bret, the big falling out with Vince, it looked like he probably wasn't going to come back, and then of course, horribly he suffers a stroke in 2002. That was a hard time for me to deal with. I just really was praying for Bret at that time to make a full recovery, and he did. And he finally starts working with the WWE again in 2005. Got what I thought I would never see, 2 things. The big Bret Hart career DVD in 2005, or maybe it was 2006 it came out, but they produced it in 2005. And of course Bret going to the 2006 Hall of Fame, which so happy Bret got to a place where he could do that, and how his career celebrated and not just remembered for the screw job, because that's one thing that does bother me, that sometimes Bret's career gets more remembered for the screw job than all the great stuff he'd done throughout his career and stuff. But Bret actually returned to WWE proper seemed like didn't seem like it was a possibility, and then 2010 finally they got to that place where they did it. Bret returned on January 4th 2010 edition of Raw. Magical moment for me, the magical moment where after all these years, all the resentment, Bret and Shawn shook hands and fucking made up. It was just an awesome moment. And let's be honest, some of it, like the Vince stuff, I thought the storyline was good, but let's be honest, the WrestleMania 26 match was pretty shit, wasn't it? Because Bret couldn't really do anything. So WWE should have done, they could have possibly done a tag match or a 6-man or something, or just booked the match to be 3 or 4 minutes and Bret gets the revenge and that's it. But then they put Bret in a few more matches, which I wish they didn't done, and I kind of wish Bret hadn't have gone along with it, because it's obviously he wasn't Bret the Hitman Hart anymore. He was what he was, a 52-year-old broken down stroke victim, which was hard. It was hard to take. So I would have preferred if Bret. Obviously, they had to do something with Bret and Vince, because that would be like not addressing the elephant in the room. But after that, if Bret had just made sporadic appearances after that, like he has done the past few years, that would have been cool. So yeah, all these amazing memories of Bret Hart makes him my favourite wrestler of all time. And that's a wrap, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, guys, peace.